So we've been talking about this faith series for quite a while, and actually next week we're going to be ending it, and then after that we're going to be starting looking at the armor of God. But anyway, this week we're going to be really going through just the end of chapter 11 of Hebrews. And we've been looking at that. We've been looking at faith, and we've seen a lot of different people and how they've lived. And really, as I look just in our time, probably throughout church history as well, I see a lot of really passive faith. You know, a lot of people who maybe claim to be Christians and just in our culture, and you can read it throughout church history and in the Bible, and many times we see a lot of passive Christianity. I think a lot of people, you can even talk about now, a lot of people are Christian because they're not Muslim, or they're not Buddhist, or they're not Hindu, or they're not atheist, or whatever. You know, you can put in there, they're Christian because they're not that. You know what I mean? That's sometimes when we see the numbers of how many are Christians, there's a group that's mixed in there, and if we're not careful, it's in the church. There's a lot of passive Christianity, people that are only Christianity by name, nominal Christians in a lot of ways. And we've seen some of that as we've gone through this. And I think a lot of people are merely fans of Jesus. They're not against him. They're like your favorite football team or basketball team or soccer team. You know, now that the World Cup's going on right now, it's like there's just a lot of people who are just fans. They're fans of Jesus, but don't ask me to do anything. Don't ask me to change anything about my life. Don't ask me to take a step. I'll follow you, Jesus, or I'll say I'm with you as long as you don't make it uncomfortable for me in my life. And sometimes that is what Mark says right there. It's like, I don't really want to follow him. I'll follow him. I'm okay with it. But if the minute I should be changing, that's when we walk away, and it's really hard. That's the uncomfortable part when we think about it in Christianity. That's sometimes where you see the separation right there. Is like, I'm okay with him because I don't want to go to hell. But, you know, you want me to live for him, I want my life to change. That's when there's kind of a line being drawn. And it's interesting when you read about Jesus, when you see just the stories about him and you read the Gospels and how he was very divisive, you know, and what he did, just how he spoke to people and what he said, this is what I'm asking, and he put the message out there. It wasn't very easy. And we've talked about that through this series and other series as well. Have you guys ever, I just thought about this as I was on Facebook, because we're all on Facebook probably like 1 billion times a day, which maybe we should just talk about that. But no, as you go on Facebook, a lot of people, they'll share those things. It says like and share if you see this, and it's like, something like there's the 8s, and it's like the big picture, and it's like find the S in all the 8s. You know what I mean? Like some kind of letter in that way. You see those, and it's like, you're a genius if you find this. And like I look on there and find it like within a second, but it's not about me here. No, but how many of us, we could go around, it's like everybody here found it. You know, it's like, I've always found it's always in the bottom right corner. It's like right there it is. It's always hidden right there. I find it every time, but I never like and share it. And maybe maybe this would be the most important thing about this today. No, this isn't the most important thing, but don't like and share those things. I'm pretty sure, like, maybe you guys, we can talk about this after, I'm pretty sure those are like scams. Like when they want you to find those, they try to make you feel like you are a genius or you're the 1% of the world if you can see this, and everybody finds it. So it's like, we can't all be the 1%, you know, and then we like and share those. Anyway, that's a side issue. I was thinking about those pictures where it has like the 8s and then there's like the 1S, you know, and it's like that sticks out. You see that. It's a little bit different from all the others. Or maybe more clear would be like the Where's Waldo books. You watch those and you see all the different pictures, all the people, all the animals and all this stuff, and then you're looking for the Waldo. He's like, is it the striped shirt and the hat and like the glasses and everything? You're looking around, all of a sudden it's like, bam, like he pops out. Like you see Waldo in there, and it's like on all these pictures, and you see it kind of sticking out. It's different from some of the other things. And that's kind of the idea I believe, of Christians. Like we should be sticking out. It's something that is different. Like if somebody came walking in here right now and they're wearing like aluminum foil rompers, you know, or something. I mean, we're all going to stare at them. You know, it's like, that person has boldness. I could say other things. That person, wow. You know, it's like they're walking in here. No, that's something that sticks out. So you think about some of this stuff, and some of these things, they stick out. And that made me think about Christianity. And how we should live for Christ. Living a bold life for Christ. Living actually by his word alone is going to make you stand out in this world. Like when we take this for truth and we start doing it and we start talking to people and we step out there and we live the way that he's talking about it here. Not as if we have to go back 2,000 years in their culture, but what he's asking from us, you're going to stick out in culture. The problem is, I think, when we don't. When we're not really living by it and we look exactly the same as everybody else. And I think that's what needs to change. But write this down. That's that point I was saying. The faithful stick out. We should. As Christians, that's what I want you to get about this. As we've seen throughout this series and we've seen throughout Hebrews 11 is faithful people stick out. There's something different about them. There should be something different about us. Not that we just have to be weird and look different. It's not the superficial things, but it is our heart following after Christ, following after Him, not doing everything that the world says to do, not doing things that are wrong, that are sinful, that we read in here that says, I probably shouldn't be doing this stuff. You're going to stick out. That's what I see about faithful people here. So we're going to be in, again, chapter 11 of Hebrews. And I'm going to read just verse 31 right here, and then we're going to go on. We're going to look at a lot of different people here. This isn't going to be focused on just one. But look right here, just in this first verse, I'm going to talk about one person here. Hebrews 11:31. It said, by faith, the prostitute Rahab, because she welcomed the spies, wasn't killed with those who were disobedient. And I want to stop there, really just talking about her for a minute. I think she's perfect to really talk about here as we talk about faithful people, and maybe as we come as a church, and we're all imperfect, nobody here is perfect. She is not the prototypical person that you would think of as being in a chapter on some of the most faithful people in history, right? I mean, think about this. It's just the prostitute Rahab. She's not this prototypical person. In fact, the Hebrew, it says Zana. We're talking about what she is. Zana just means, and your version may say harlotry or harlot or prostitution. Okay, that's what she did. She was a harlot. She was a prostitute. I read some other definitions of this, and it threw in the word whore. So strong words that we're talking about Rahab right here. And in case you're wondering, like, was prostitution different from then to now? It's like the basic things are the same, okay? You're understanding it right. She was not living like what we would typically think of, like just a good moral life in this ways. And she's looked at as being a faithful person. She wasn't living a perfect life. She just had faith. She was a broken, sinful person, just like you and me. And I mentioned that last week, and I think that's important for us to get here. That's important, maybe for the church to be getting this out there to people. If you read this book and you continue to think that these people are just on another level, there's something different about these people. Like there's no way I could follow people like this, Kyle, because they're up here. They live this perfect lifestyle. They were perfect in every possible way. I can't possibly do this. Yeah, it's fun to read these stories, but there's no way I could be like them. I talked about that last week. If you continue to look at the Bible this way, then you're going to miss that. You're going to miss it, that God can use us, that He wants to, that these people were imperfect just like us. I'm not saying that they were prostitutes like we're exactly like them, but I'm saying we're imperfect, we're broken people just like these people. I want you to understand that. There is no extra faith gene that they had. They were just like us. Just regular people, and yet they just had faith in God. They just trusted in Him. Because it's not in our abilities, it's not in our greatness that God can use us and all that. He made us, He created us from the dust of the ground. We have nothing to really brag about. I mean, just being honest. We are broken, messed up people. Turning to Him, that's what does everything. And that's what I want you to see about these people. And I think it's perfect to open up here with Rahab, who, by the way, most believe she was the one that is mentioned in the lineage of Jesus. In the line of Christ, in His family lineage, you think about Rahab, this prostitute, and how she lived. She didn't maybe even know about her life and how that was wrong. That's kind of put to the side. That wasn't even the main thing. It was that she had faith in God. She had faith in Him. And that's so important for us to see. In fact, write this next thing down. I think this is important about faith. Faith is belief with action to back it up. We've been talking about Hebrews 11 for quite a few weeks now. We're talking about faith and what it really is. And it's not just lip service. It's not just saying, I believe in God, He's there, yeah. And nothing really changes. Faith is, when we're talking here and we see in the Bible, and especially with all these people, is it's belief in God. Yeah, you start right there, but it moves beyond that. Because I think you can look at the world and there's so many people that are at that first part. Like, okay, I believe there's a God. But the line is drawn. I think the number dwindles dramatically when you get to that next part. Faith is belief with action to back it up. Like I'm going to follow Him. There's an action. There's a substance behind my faith. I'm truly going to follow You, which means I'm going to get into this Word. I'm going to read this, even though this stuff is going to make me uncomfortable. And He says He wants me to do this. Even though there's things I need to change about my life, I'm going to step out there and do that. I'm going to follow You. I believe in You, God. And He says those who follow Me, those who believe in Me are going to follow My commands. They're going to do what I say. And that's the hard part. That's where I think the line is drawn, and that's where I think we kind of step back and like, I don't know that I really like this. Faith is belief with action to back it up. It's like saying, I can cook, but then actually cooking and backing it up, like something like that just popped in my mind, right? Lunch is coming up, so you gotta all these. No, it's like saying I love you, but then actually backing it up by doing stuff, by sacrificing, by changing your life and living for people and helping people out. Right? It's saying I trust you and doing one of those kind of trust falls. I get up here and like if I ask somebody to come up here, I'm not going to do that because I don't know that I trust you guys. But it's like saying you trust somebody and then doing that trust fall, actually following through with it. You know, that's what I think about with true faith is it's there's action to back it up. God, I believe you. And he's like, okay, then go do this. And that's where we tend to step back. I don't know that I believe you that much or if I believe you at all. So here's what's happening in Joshua chapter 2. I just wanted to read a little bit more of the back details on Rahab's story and what happened here. But this is in Joshua chapter 2. Joshua, like the Israelites are now like on the cusp of taking on the promised land. They're right there. Their parents had messed up. They didn't have faith, and they had to wander around in the wilderness for 40 years. Now this group, now they've grown up, this group that God wants to take into the promised land, they're right there. And Joshua is sending spies into Jericho. This is the first place they're going to be taken over. And they go to Rahab's house, not for recreational opportunities, but just to stay in a place right there. They're staying there. And so the king of Jericho knows about this, and he sends this message to Rahab, Joshua 2:2-7. The king of Jericho was told, look, some of the Israelites have come here tonight to spy out the land. So the king of Jericho sent this message to Rahab. Bring out the men who came to you and entered your house, because they've come to spy out the whole land. But the woman had taken the men and hidden them. She said, yes, the men came to me, but I didn't know where they had come from. At dusk, when it was time to close the city gates, they left. I don't know which way they went, but go after them quickly. You may catch up to them. But she had taken them up to the roof and hidden them under the stalks of flax she had laid out on the roof. So the men set out in pursuit of the spies on the road that leads to the fords of the Jordan. And as soon as the pursuers had gone out, the gate was shut. And so you're looking at this, and it seems like a kind of a crazy story. What's happening there? Is she lying? Is this wrong? We're not even going to talk about that. But she's there, and she makes this choice. The king is there. He's mad. She's probably putting her family, her life definitely at stake by, should I trust the king or should I go with these guys who I believe in their God? Which one should I go with? And she chose to hide them out and not turn them over to the king. She took a huge risk right there in her life. But by not turning over these spies. I think she had faith. She's like, I believe there's a God. I think she was at that point. She did. She had something. We don't know exactly how all this came about. The word was getting out, about God. They knew. And she knew that they were coming in there, but she had to make this choice. Okay, I believe in God, but she went past that. She went past that to saying, you know what, my life is at stake here now. They've got a purpose to do. They're on mission from God, and I'm going to be on their side on this. And she took that chance. She had faith, she had belief, but she moved past that into action. And that's the difference. And I think that's why she's included in a chapter like some of the most faithful people throughout the Bible. And you see this. And that's why she's included in there. And we see this. It was different. It was very difficult. In fact, write this down. Your faith steps will be difficult. And I'm not saying that because I'm terrible at motivating people. Like, man, Kyle, you're not really good at this. You're just telling us this is going to be difficult. I'm saying that because I want to state that as a fact. It's important for us to know. And I think sometimes from stages, people in my position, maybe we make this sound like it's going to be easy. Sometimes we say, like, you just come to God, everything's going to be perfect, you're going to have no problems, you're going to have all this stuff's going to be taken care of. And we're not promised of that. Honestly, you read throughout Scripture and he says that you're not promised of that. This life is going to be difficult. This life can be hard. This life is not the final goal. It's going to be difficult. So your steps, I just want us to be aware. Jesus even told us that. He said, people are going to hate you because of me, because you're following me. And so you look here, and you think about our steps of faith. They will be difficult when you take those steps. If you don't want it to be difficult, I'm just saying, I don't want you to take this path. If you don't want it to be difficult, then don't follow God. I'm just being honest there. I want you to follow him, but I just want to be real with you. He says it's going to be difficult when you follow him, but it's so worth it. I just want to encourage you with that. Rahab a prostitute who many probably wrote off, didn't think would be in a place like this, would never consider to be in the same chapter as some of these people, simply had faith. She had faith in God. And she backed it up with action. She took some steps out there and started following him. I'm not just going to say I believe in you. I'm not just going to say, no, I believe in you guys, God, but look, man, this guy's going to kill me. I got to go with him, so I got to turn you guys over. But I'm with you guys. You know, sometimes that's where I think we are as Christians. We're kind of straddling the fence. I don't want to rock the boat. I don't want to make anybody mad. I don't want to do any of this, so I'm going to just make this easy on me. And be kind of right in the middle and take no stance whatsoever. And that's where we are. I've been there many times. It's an easy thing to do. Your faith steps will be difficult. Let me read over a little bit more. Let's go back to Hebrews chapter 11 and just see, because he just kind of lists a bunch of people here. He's like, I've got so many people here. I just kind of sense the excitement in the writer here. Like, I just want to tell you about all these people. So look at verses 32 through 38. And he says, and what more shall I say? I don't have time to tell you about Gideon, Barak, Samson, Jephthah, and David, and Samuel and the prophets, who through faith conquered kingdoms, administered justice, and gained what was promised, who shut the mouths of lions, quenched the fury of the flames, and escaped the edge of the sword, whose weakness was turned to strength, and who became powerful in battle and routed foreign armies. Women received back their dead, raised to life again. There were others who were tortured, refusing to be released so that they might gain an even better resurrection. Some faced jeers and flogging, even chains and imprisonment. They were put to death by stoning. They were sawed in two. They were killed by the sword. They went about in sheepskins and goatskins, destitute, persecuted, and mistreated. The world was not worthy of them. And I think that's where the sentence should end. They wandered in deserts and mountains, living in caves and in holes in the ground. Man, what a list. It's like a who's who list of the faithful people of God. I read that. I'm just amazed by that. The world was not worthy of them. By the way, weird if you guys are thinking about this, but if you're wondering what you want to put on my gravestone, the world was not worthy of him. I don't know if you want to put that. I can't ask for that because then it would just seem like no humility. The world was not worthy of him. You could add stuff like he was funny and father of a daughter and a wife. I don't know, whatever you can add in there to make it real. But no, that's just what it said in there. Like, the world was not worthy of them. I think that's amazing. Really, it's talking about to be in Scripture mentioned as that. The world was not worthy of them. Just speaking of their amazing faith and how they lived and what they did and all the stuff that they went through. It was amazing when I see those things. Sometimes I read this. Honestly, I just, if I think my life is bad, sometimes I will go back, and here's maybe a good practice. Go back and read some of these in Scripture. Just read that section if you think your life is bad. I'm not saying maybe your life is pretty bad, but sometimes I go to that, and I'm like, man, I'm an idiot. It's not that bad. And I go back and read this, and then I'm humbled, when I read these things. But just think about some of the people he mentioned. He mentioned Gideon. I wanted to go through all these, but there's just a long list. Go back and read about some of these people. Gideon, when the first time he met the angel of the Lord, he's out there threshing wheat in a hidden place because the Midianites are coming there. He's like in hiding from them, and he's threshing out this wheat. And the angel of the Lord comes there to him, calls him mighty warrior, which I think this is more God looking into him what he's going to be than what he is at this point. He's hiding out, threshing out wheat, and he calls him mighty warrior. And just some of the things he did. Look, he wasn't perfect. He was still questioning God. He was asking God for signs to make sure that it's really him. And then there's one particular story that maybe you know about if you know much about Gideon. It's just he was called by God to lead out this army to go take on the Midianites, and he's got 32,000 people. So it starts off good. Like you think, okay, this is an army, 32,000 people, and he goes there, and then God being God said, there's too many people. That's like, you never hear that in the stories of battles. Like, we want to knock this down. He's like, I don't want people to rely on themselves or to think that they did this. There's too many people. So go to him and ask him, whoever's afraid can turn back. And again, I think that's never a part of the pep talk when you're going into battle. Like, okay, how many of you guys are afraid? All right, well, you can go home. It's all right. It's okay. Just go ahead and tell your family hi. Now the rest of you guys. So that's what he did. He's like, tell the rest of them, whoever's afraid, you can turn around and go home. And he did. And maybe maybe he's thinking, maybe nobody's going to go home. But 10,000 people leave like, I didn't want to say anything, but thanks for bringing it up. I got to go. my feet hurt, or whatever it was. Like they turn away, 10,000. So he's down to 22,000 now, and it's like, oh man, well, God's amazing. He's going to do this. And he's like, no, there's still too many people. What? What is wrong with you, God? You know, and so he goes to him and he's like, okay, now they're going to go and drink some water. And he's like, those who just get down like on their knees and they're just drinking out of the ground, you know, drinking out of the water, like they're not looking around. Like, I want you to remove those from those who kneel down and kind of cup it to their hand, you know, to their mouth. And that way, and he separates them. He ends up with 300 people in this battle, from 32,000 to 300. And now God's like, okay, that's a little bit better. You know, and you're like, what planet are you living on? Like, I don't know if he would say that, and then that would be a weird conversation. Well, so it's 300 people. And he goes there, and the crazy story about it is he ends up going in there, and they didn't even have to lift a sword. They go in there and just make a lot of noise, banging pots, and they've got these, they're shouting to God and Gideon. They've got these torches, and they're just making noises. And the Midianites, it's at night, they're kind of freaked out. They don't know what's happening. They end up turning on each other, killing each other, and they don't even have to lift a sword to really do anything. And you think about that, and now, at the end of it, I can see it's a lot easier for Gideon to go back and be like, that's what he was doing. Well, that makes it. This is really cool, God, that you did this. 300 of us. This is amazing. But in the middle of it, I know it had to seem crazy. Be like, we're going to whittle our army down to a few hundred people. But he did. He trusted in God. He just had faith in him. And that's the idea of faith, is it's like, it's not in your power. I think it's the idea of, this isn't me and my abilities. It's the opposite. It's me getting out of the way and just trusting in him, because I have no ability. So that crushes anybody here that thinks like, well, I got to have these certain abilities so I can have faith. No, it's you admitting your weakness and going to God. He's the one who's in control and can do all of that. And I think that's what Gideon really learned there. Samson was another guy. What do we know about him? He had a lot of strength and could do like shampoo commercials because he had the long flowing hair. I mean, that's really what we know about Samson. He messed up a lot because he had a really bad problem of loving a lot of women. You know, he did that. He had problems with it. He was maybe a little bit cocky and all this. He ended up giving his power away, what it was, and cut his hair, lost his strength, was brought into slavery, and they poked out his eyes. So he was blind now. And he's in prison, and they're parading him around at their party that they're having. And he has faith in God, really, one more time. Trusting him. And if you remember the scene, if you've seen the show that was just out recently, in fact, I know I did a sermon on this just a while back, but he asked God for that strength once more. And there was more people there that he killed than he ever had done before of the enemies. And he pushed down those beams and killed everybody and himself. But he's mentioned in here because of his faith. He had faith in God. He messed up. That's another thing to really look at that. He wasn't perfect. So if you're thinking he had to be perfect, and again, he's on this level that I'm not, Kyle. No, he was a regular person. He had a lot of strength. God used him in that way. But you see his character and how he was. He wasn't perfect. He messed up. David was another guy that we know about. David was just this shepherd boy. He was just this regular guy, the youngest of his brothers. And he's used by God to go take on this giant. This giant who was taunting the armies of God, just going out there when nobody else, the armies of God, they're out there, they're hiding out and they're scared. And David goes there and he's like, we serve God. And you just see his faith like on display. He's there. He's like, we serve God. What are you guys staying back for? He ends up going in there, gets a sling and takes out this giant, cuts off his head. You know, it's really gory. Does all this stuff, beats him. And he's doing this all just in his faith. He's trusting in God. Again, it's not in his abilities. It's not in his greatness. He was just this young guy who goes in there facing off this giant of a guy, and he takes him out. But it was all in the power of God. And that's what we see with all these guys. That's what we see with all these people. He shut the mouths of lions. Go read the book of Daniel and see that, just how Daniel was unwilling to stop praying to God, even when these people were trying to get him killed. And he goes back there and he's praying to God. They find him, they take him back, and they throw him in a den with lions. And again, lions in that time are the same as lions now, in case you're wondering. Like, they're giant cats who can eat people. You know, it's like, throws him in this den with these lions, and that's how they just wanted to kill him. That'll show you should listen to us and stop praying to your God. And they throw him in there, and the opposite happens, though, that God shuts him out to these lions. I don't know how it was. I don't know if he's just in there just like walking around petting him. It was just completely changed. It was a different scene right there. God moved in a huge way. saves him, shut the mouths of lions. And you see all this stuff just about these people. People, it didn't always go the way that they wanted. Some of them died. I mean, did you see the end of that section when it was talking about? Some of it wasn't perfect. So I just want us to understand it's not always going to go perfect. Like I said, we may lose our life. Are we willing to do that? It mentioned in there, some people were sawed in two. I don't know if you saw that or if you read that or if you picture something different when you read that. No, it's pretty much how we would think about it now. It is a very gory, I can only imagine, horrible way to go. But they continued to trust in God. He said these people, to the end, they trusted in God. And I thought about it a few years ago, I think it was 2015, where there were some Coptic Christians, some Egyptian Christians, who ISIS took them, what was it, like 10 of them? And I think they had them like on a beach, and they even put this online or whatever, and they ended up killing them, like slitting their throats. I don't remember if they cut their heads off, but they killed them. And these people were just continuing to praise God, either sing to him or reading scripture, and they were saying this. And so you see that, and I bring that up just to think about, okay, this is way back then, and we see some of these people, this is still happening now. There are people that are still losing their lives, and they're trusting in God, no matter what. Not just when they have good things, not just when God does good things for them and gives them money and fame and fortune and all that stuff, but when they're about to lose their lives in a brutal, horrible way that they didn't deserve, they continue to trust God. They took an active step of faith. I'm going to trust you, God, no matter what. So many people, I read about that. Here's my final question. I'll put it up on the TVs here. What is holding you back from pursuing God? And I say it this way, with reckless abandon. I question saying it that way because I know there's even a song, we do it sometimes, and I liked it. And some people, sometimes it's questioned like why they call it reckless, talking about love or reckless abandon. And I like it that way because I want to think about it is us really kind of throwing caution to the wind and trusting God no matter what happens. And here's where I was going with that. I looked up reckless. The part that I was thinking about there, it's defined as a lack of caution or careless of consequences of what's happening. And that's what I mean. I'm not saying be stupid. Stupid is like jumping out of an airplane with no parachute. You're like purposely. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying be stupid in that way. But I'm talking about just following God with no care for what happens, with no care for what other people think, or what's going to happen to your social life, or to people, what people are going to think, or if they're going to laugh at you. That's what I'm saying is like we should follow God with absolutely everything, not worrying about any of that stuff. The faithful stick out in a crowd. I think that's what I see. That's what I see should happen. I'm not saying it always happens. I'm not saying this is a guy who has it all down. I'm not even possibly saying that. I'm saying that's what I'm striving for, and I think that's what we as Christians, if you really are following him, that's what we should be doing. We should stick out in a crowd in that way. Not be weird. We don't have to have all this stuff on that says, I'm a Christian, and somebody I'm stupid or whatever. You don't have to have something like that. It's just, I'm going to follow you with everything. And you stick out when people truly do live for God. It's noticeable. You want to leave here today with and incorporate something, like it's something that you can put into your life and actually follow him and actually do. And that's what I would say. I don't ever really have some big, unique thing that you've never heard. It's just as what I would say is like, we got to get into this. We got to get into this word. Check this. I say this all the time, and I mean it to you guys. Read this word and check what I'm saying. Don't just take my advice. You guys have to read this for yourselves. You got to get into this and see. God speaks to you through this. Do not make this time here, this 30, 40 minutes that we're here, be your only time that you're in Scripture. You're going to miss out on so much. Follow him with everything. So when you get this, when you see it, it does start to change you. Maybe that's where we're a little bit scared. It does actually change you, and then you start to incorporate this into your life, and you go out there and do it, and people are going to see the difference in you. Man, they're going to see some things about you. It's dangerous. It can be dangerous and it can be uncomfortable, but don't turn away because of that. That's what I mean. Like live devoted to him, even when people turn away from you, even when people laugh at you, even when no one wants to follow you. Tell everyone about him, even if it's uncomfortable, even if the same thing, even if people laugh at you, even if people turn away from you. Doesn't matter. Follow him. Stop doing the things that you know God doesn't like, that it's in Scripture. We got to stop doing that. If you want to follow him, if you want to obey him and live for him truly and follow him and see him move in our lives. Sometimes we want to see him move in huge ways, but we are unwilling to change this junk that's going on in our life that is tearing us away from him. We think that's what's going to make us happy. We got to turn away from that. Church, we got to stop playing around. You know, I feel like this is a theme that's just kind of coming up a lot with me because I'm really studying a whole lot on this, but it's just, I honestly do. If I don't make that clear enough or, you know, where you can understand what I'm saying, I don't want to just do church. I don't want to just play around. I don't want us just to come here. I don't want us to get to the magic number, you know, where we've made it, whatever that is, as a church, and we just kind of come together. We have fun and we're known around here, whatever. That's completely pointless for us to do that. We got to get in this word, and I want us to be changed people. I want us to come together, have fun as a family, and be together and take care of each other. But we got to get into this and follow him. Stop being fake. Stop being hypocritical. And stop giving people outside the church, man, I would say maybe even Satan, more ammo to use to people who are outside the church, saying, look, they're no different. They're just the same. They're living the same way. They're hypocritical. They're doing the exact same things as you. And now they're trying to ask you to go in there. Why go to that place? Why go to that church? Because they're just like everybody else. You can go out here, do the same things they're doing, except now you don't have to be in there and listen to some of the stuff they're talking about. I think that's what Satan says. I think that's what he's preaching out there to us. And sometimes we give that ammo when we're not living by this and obeying God and living for him. It's not an easy call. It's uncomfortable as we read throughout all this. It shakes us to the core. It's going to change us. It's hard. And sometimes, really, it's like, you know, if you've ever been in those haunted houses where you can't see anywhere and you're wondering what the next step is, sometimes I almost think about that. Not a haunted house, but like wondering what's the next step. You know, as you're walking in life. That is how it is. I just want to be honest. You're following God. It's exciting. It's amazing to see him do things. But sometimes if you truly are following him, you don't know what the next step is going to be. You can't plan out this with perfect understanding of what your life's going to be like in 10 years. Sometimes you don't know what the next step is going to be, but he is in control. You get all this stuff out of the way and just follow him. And I'm telling you, it sounds kind of scary. It sounds a little bit uncomfortable, but man, when the church actually does this, if we could get this down, I read it in Scripture. I read it in Acts. It's just gripping me so much more now. When I read that, when they actually did this, when they took this seriously, people change. Ephesus, you can read this in Acts, and I'm going to close it out here. You can read in Acts, Ephesus. Just go see what happened. Paul went to this place, went to Ephesus, and he just started preaching the gospel. And this town, this Ephesus, was known for this Artemis, this false god. And they had this temple worship. Things were going on there. And Paul went there and just started preaching the gospel. And people changed. People were turning over to God. And because of that, they weren't buying these idols anymore, which affected the town because the blacksmiths were ticked off now because that's where they got their money from. People buying idols. And they're like, we got to get this guy out of here because he's preaching this message and people are turning and they're living for a God and they don't need our stuff anymore. And it affected a whole culture. And that affected me this week, just thinking about that. When the church, when we get this, when we don't just play around, when we don't just come on Sunday and we leave out here and we're back to normal. You know, we just did this to make ourselves feel better or make me feel better, whatever it is. When we actually do this, it changes things. It changes us. It changes cities. It changes cultures. People change when we unashamedly and passionately follow Christ without being fake. I'm not saying be perfect. You're going to mess up. We're all going to mess up. Every single one of us, we're going to mess up. So I'm not asking you to be perfect. You can't be perfect. Turn to him who is. Follow him with everything that you possibly can. That's what I'm asking. That's when we're going to change. That's when cities change. You guys go ahead and bow your heads.